Oh my God, I love that song. I'm so happy you played that. Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus. That song's about Jesus. No, I'm here to talk about the Jesus of independent film, Jeff Nichols. Easter's coming up soon, so it's appropriate. I started working with Jeff Nichols when both of us were nobody. And he called me out of the blue. And I started working with him. And I've done all 5 of his feature films. And I've done a lot of press for them. And everybody inevitably asks, why do you want to work with Jeff Nichols? Why do you keep working with him? And I always say he's like a brother to me, which is honestly kind of a lame answer. It's kind of a cliche, generic answer. And it's not even true because he's not my brother. I only have one brother. I have a little brother. He's my half brother. We're not even whole brothers. And he loads semi trucks for a grocery delivery company, McLean. So he's absolutely nothing like Jeff Nichols. But he is a very important person to me. His name's David. He's a very sweet kid. I watched him grow up. I watched him suffer because his father, who's not my father, did not pay much attention to him. I watched him have dreams of being a basketball player and have those crushed by the reality of the fact that he just wasn't good enough. And I watched him become a very beautiful man, a very quiet man, a very silently conflicted man, which is very much like the men in the films of Jeff Nichols. So the thing that's always really moved me so much about Jeff Nichols is that he makes movies about people that matter to me, like my little brother. My little brother's in his movies without my little brother or Jeff even knowing it. My stepfather, who I really didn't like very much, but I still understand and have empathy for, is in Jeff's movies, because Jeff understands this particular persona of the man who is troubled and yet unable ultimately to put it into words, to deal with it, to deal with that conflict, and yet has a good heart and wants to do the right thing. You see that time and again in his films, and you see that relationship between the father and the son. And you see people that desperately want to care for one another and take care of one another, and yet somehow are incapable of doing that or thwarted in their attempts to do that. And I've always found that very moving. I've also found it very moving that Jeff plays from the heart. In every movie he makes, he is putting his heart on the line. We were talking earlier about the film he had this year, Loving, that came out. A beautiful film. I think you all agree, yeah. And it's a very simple film, it's a very majestic film, and yet it is loaded with every instrument at Jeff's disposal, every weapon in his arsenal, the grace of his storytelling, the majesty of his storytelling, the simplicity of his storytelling, his trust for the audience, his belief in the audience that they will meet him halfway, that they will integrate this into themselves. And I just want you all to understand how fortunate you are to live in an era where Jeff Nichols makes movies and that you get to watch them, because he is a supreme filmmaker like no other. And that's why he's getting this award tonight. Let's take a look at some clips from the films of Jeff Nichols.
Where the hell did he go?
I don't know.
okay?
What do you think you're doing?
I got something I want to say.
The hell you do.
Young man, what do you want?
Sir, I'd like to say something.
That's up to the family.
Let him talk.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you marry this man without saying a few things first. You all are here because you think this was a good man, but he wasn't. Just because you stopped drinking, call yourself Christian, get a new life, start a new family, that doesn't make you a different man.
You know, I have to say, I've really been looking forward to meeting you. They think you're a weapon.
I'm not.
And the ranch thinks you're their savior.
I'm not any of those things. I belong in another world.
Listen up! There is a storm coming! Like nothing you have ever seen! And not a one of you is prepared for it! You think I'm crazy? Hey, I'm talking to you, Russell! Huh? Lewis, you think I'm a thief?
Sleep well in your beds, because if this thing comes true, there ain't gonna be any more.
You go to the Virginia State Court next, right?
Yes.
You nervous?
I suppose. The lawyers told us not to expect much.
You think you'll lose?
Well, yes. But I think it's all right. We may lose the small battles, but win the big war.
Texas Film Hall of Fame honoree, Jeff Nichols.
Thank you. Oh, man. Man, it is tough to follow a Shirley MacLaine clip reel. But it's really tough to follow a Shirley MacLaine speech. But I'm going to try. First off, I have to thank Michael Shannon. I was nobody. It was 2003, and I called him on the phone, and I said, I've written a script for you. You don't know who I am, but will you come to Arkansas and play this part? And he said, yeah, send it to me. And he read it, and he did it. And a week into filming, I took him out to dinner, and I said, you know, we're paying you. He was like, how much you paying me? I said, we're paying you $100 a week. And he just said, keep it. I mean, I can't tell you how many stories I have about Mike. Mike taught me how to be a director. He taught me how to be a filmmaker. We are friends, but far more important than that, we are collaborators. And I'm very aware that when I die, whether that's tomorrow or in 30 years, the most that people will say about me is that I worked with Michael Shannon. So thanks. All right, we're here to talk about Texas, and I have some things to say. I have to thank the Austin Film Society. I have to thank Rick. I have to thank Rebecca. I have to thank Holly. When I made Shotgun Stories, our first film, I was broke. I was so broke. I had about $37 in my bank account. And, you know, when you make a successful film, they fly you all over the world to go to these film festivals. It's great. But you're broke, and you can't eat. And the Texas Filmmaker Production Fund gave me $500. And it was, I mean, it was everything. It's hard for me to explain how important it was to me. And you all that gave money to things tonight, you gave money to people that are trying desperately to get their stories out into the world. And they're important, they're good stories, and you all have helped that. That's what we're all here for. So it's very important that we say that. And I'm humbled and honored to be here, but that's really why we're all here. So I wanted to say that. So Texas Film Hall of Fame. I'm from Arkansas. I'm very proud to be from Arkansas. But Texas has given me a lot. For starters, Texas has given me Sarah Green, who you guys are about to watch an extraordinarily impressive clip reel about. She's my producing partner since Take Shelter, and she's incredible. You're about to find out about her. Ty Sheridan, you gave me a gift in mud that I can't repay you for. You know, everybody talks about the reconnaissance, and they talk about Matthew's performance. That movie collapses without you. Collapses without you. So why am I in Texas? I'm in Texas because when I got out of film school, I was scared to go to LA, and I was scared to go to New York. Those were big places. And my brother was going into his second year of law school at UT. And I thought Austin sounded like a cool place. I'd heard about Richard Linklater. I'd heard about Robert Rodriguez. I'd heard about this guy, Terrence Malick, who apparently played basketball. I really wanted to come here and play basketball against him and block his shot. That's yet to happen. So I moved down here, and a professor of mine at college knew a woman here that was in film. I took her out for a drink because I had no connections. I was about to start looking for jobs, waiting tables, and I had a Townes Van Zandt CD playing in my car. And she said, my friend is making a movie about Townes Van Zandt, and she might need some help. And that was Margaret Brown, and she made a movie called Be Here to Love Me. It's a documentary, and that introduced me to so much. It introduced me to the Austin film scene. We actually had offices at Detour. Lee Daniel, who Hector, who's such a brilliant guy, spoke about earlier. Karen Skloss, whose movie's showing at South by this weekend. It introduced me to all of the film people, but also it introduced me to the music scene here. I was a fan of Townes. I was a fan of Joe Ely's. I was a fan of Guy Clark's. I can't believe you're sitting there. This freaks me out. But it took me to these places, you know. It took me to Jenny's Little Longhorn. It took me to the Poodle Dog Lounge, and it took me to the Cactus Cafe. And I was like, holy shit. This is a place. This is a place that has gravity, that is important. And I worked for a year on that film. I gave a lot to that film. I fell in love with Townes Van Zandt. I fell out of love with Townes Van Zandt. I fell back in love with Townes Van Zandt. But my time was over. I was ready to go back to Arkansas and make my first movie, Shotgun Stories. And the director, Margaret, said, please, 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 just stay on 3 more months. Just 3 more months. I said, all right, but my lease is up with my brother, and I don't have a place to live. So you find me a place to live. I'll stay here for 3 months. I didn't expect her to find a place. She did. She said, I have a friend, lost a roommate. Go take a look. So I went up to this house, and I knocked on this door, and this girl answered the door. And she was beautiful. And I'd never lived with a girl before in any capacity. So I was quite nervous, but we moved in together, and I finished my work on this film. And we were roommates for about 13 days. And then we became something else. And that woman became my wife. And I may not be Texan, but she is. She's from Helotes, Texas. She is from Helotes, Texas. She went to Southwest Texas State. And we fell in love. And after I made Shotgun Stories, I moved back here. I've written 4 out of my 5 films here. I've edited all 5 of my films here. And it's because she's here. And we have a son now. He's a Texan. That's all right. We're going fishing in Arkansas next week. Yeah, well. And my wife has not only given me this great state. This film takes shelter where you watched Mike screaming at the audience. That film is actually about me getting married. I know that sounds strange, but it was. It was about the anxiety of being married and wanting to be good enough. And when I made Mud, we had producers, not Sarah Green, we had producers saying, why do you want to cast Matthew McConaughey? Come on now. No, nobody wants to see that. And Missy just told me, people want to see Matthew McConaughey. And she was right. And I wrote that part for him, and he luckily ended up doing it. When I made this film, Midnight Special, that's about our son. That's about, if you have kids, the tremendous fear that we carry with us about losing them. And my wife gave me that. And then I made Loving. I got an email from the producers. There had been a documentary about the Loving story that was made. And I sent the trailer for the documentary to my wife, and I said, they want me to turn this into a movie. What do you think? And she just wrote back, if you don't do this, I will divorce you. And that one got nominated for an Oscar. So as much as I love Texas, I love my wife a little bit more. And I owe her so much that this award really belongs to you. And as much as you know, Arkansas is my home state, I am very proud to call Austin my home. Thanks, guys.